So, for this training that we call Ready Plus Community Engagement, we're going to talk about how to better connect and interact with communities. In other workshops, we teach you to honestly connect to yourself and reflect on your own self, what you do, your values, your journey, your goals, to just be better equipped and have a clearer vision of what you want and what you want to accomplish. Because, like we say, for Ready Plus is an individual journey, and it starts with you. It's about doing your part. Then we talk also about what we call Ready Plus advocacy, which is more connecting to an individual or a small group, which means I'm trying to defend something. It's very specific. You advocate for someone. You need to understand their lived experience. But today we want to talk about something that's a bit of it's more macro. It's a more macro issue. It's a bigger issue. It's really about connecting with communities. A group that share some values, share some identity, but also experience life in a similar way because of who they are, what they look like, or where they're from, etc. So community engagement is very much about understanding how to better interact with communities and considering that aspect of things, because there are things that are happening inside the community that you need to understand, but also there are things that are happening outside, and you need to understand what it means to interact with communities when you're an outsider, and just that tension that exists. There's a lot that need to be said, of course, and we hope you learn a lot throughout that workshop. And so let's start. As I say, we will cover two main topics today. We're going to cover multilayer stigma. We've talked about before about multilayer identities. So trying to understand and identify how identities impact lived experience. Today, we're going to talk about stigma and what's attached when it comes to communities when you have certain identities. So we're going to focus a little bit on that. Then we're going to talk about community collaboration and knowledge sharing, which is very core, key, and so important for Ready Plus. And if you don't know enough about Ready Plus, go check our resources. There's a lot of good stuff in there. But because you want to make sure you follow the lead of the communities, you don't need to know that much. As you can see, like there's two main objectives today, and to chat about those two things, because the main thing that I need to know and understand, and that would save you a lot of time and a lot of a lot of energy also, is communities you want to work with, they have the knowledge, they have the expertise, they know what they need, they know what they want. It's about you. You need to be the right person or the right organization, or whatever way you decide you want to connect, because it's like I said, we are more of a macro level, so risk connecting no matter what the entity is. And it's really recognizing that it's already known. There's might not be a word, a way to say it, a way to change about it, but it's already there. So we're going to hear, if you listen to all those workshops, you're going to hear me say a lot, don't reinvent the wheel. Just look at how people are doing it already. So first, we're going to start with multi-layered stigma. And the reason why we start with this, it's because we put a big emphasis on identities and how you need to make sure you don't ask someone to choose between their identities. Sometimes it's relevant, but most of the time you just want to meet someone where they are at and make sure they feel understood. Because even if you want to address something, if you want to fix something and you're trying to address it from just one point of view, one aspect, you're not going to solve anything. You need to have the bigger picture and understand everything as a whole. And for multi-layer stigma, it's very important to understand the tension that you might encounter, the tension you're going to be around, the tensions that come with being part of a community and what it means for someone, what they hold, the impact it has on their experience, on their interactions. There's a lot that needs to be impacted when it comes to multi-layer identities that lead to having, therefore, multi-layered stigma. So let's try and understand diversity in communities together. So people experience multiple forms of social exclusion, judgment, discrimination, which is stigma, based on their identity, life circumstances, and life choices. So why is this specific aspect of things important to community engagement? It's because it helps us understand the complexities of individual experiences within communities and culture. This is the way we connect. This is what I am saying. It's about understanding their experience, but at a different level. Um, and that's something that you're going to find something that's going to be shared. That understanding that we're trying to teach you through multi-layer stigma, it's something that's shared within the fact that you are part of of the same community as someone else. So it's transferable knowledge, we call it sometimes. Something that people forget or underestimate is that when we talk about stigma, the first thing that comes to mind is, oh, I will experience stigma from someone who's discriminating against me, someone who doesn't understand, who has biases, who is prejudiced. And that stigma is part of that experience that comes from the outside or from broader society, which is the one that we probably all have in mind when we talk about stigma. It's important also to remember that people exist and experience those multi-layered stigma within their own community and cultures, because there are things that are happening that also have either integrated some of the stigma or is reproducing or even just upholding some of those stigma. So when it comes to culture and communities, there are some expectation or assumption that are associated with stigma. So it's coming from, it can, the call can come from the inside the house, basically. And we need to remember that when we're connecting, it doesn't mean that we're connecting on the other side. It's not a reflection of what's on the outside. There's a tension, there's more complexity to it. And that people experience opposite forces sometimes. They want to be part of that community that can stigmatize them, but they also want a part of a society that also stigmatizes them. So there's always this kind of tension between those two things that we need to keep in mind, because also from broader society perspective, there is aspect of identities that are that you can be discriminated on. Something like race, income, sexual orientation, gender. All of those identity can lead to being victimized, for example, or being stigmatized for who you are. And it's often rooted in systems that are present everywhere, and that sometimes we can see, sometimes we can't, but it's always kind of a risk. So it's rooted in concepts like racism, sexism, and all sort of form of discrimination that is about an unequal power dynamic. So power, balance, etc. Like this is what stigma. This is why it's important to understand stigma and where it comes from. It comes from different sources. Don't assume that a source of the stigma is one consistent source. There's always more tension to it. So, what does it look like, really? The risk when we think about community engagement, doing community engagement, and maybe the best way to do it wrong is trying to start from a point that's kind of unique, like trying to have an assumption that this is what the problem is. So the problem is, I don't know, this is the one we focus the most on, for example, is stigma from broader society. So, oh, that person is Black, gonna experience racism. I'm gonna help that person with like validating the fact that they're experiencing it, and we're gonna take that into account in the work that we do with that community. That's an example. Then so you're missing some perspective on the issue, because there might be something that comes from within the community and the culture that you also need to integrate into the way that you work. And then there's a other aspect of the identity, for example, that stigma is related to your life circumstances or choices that will be different from your other identities or the community you belong to, or the one that is associated with something that's broader. in society. Therefore, if you focus on one aspect, you're not addressing everything. You're not connecting well because no, it doesn't click. It won't click. You just have one part. You have to understand that when it comes to multi-layer stigma, those forces come from different sources, and this is where the pressure comes, and that needs to be acknowledged and understood and known. Otherwise, you're not gonna get through and have the conversation that you want to have. So this is exactly what it looks like. You have someone in the middle, and that those pressure are applied to that person. So multi-layer identity leads to multi-layered stigma, leads to multi-layered challenges that will get in the way of you connecting properly with communities. So integrate that into the way that you work, and be on the lookout and be prepared, be open-minded to what it is, and then follow their lead. Always going to be this. Being aware, do not put your your eyes, like don't block your vision to think. Make sure it's open, and then let people give you take the lead and share with you what they need. So because the goal for you is really to safely and mindfully connect with people without judgment. So you want to make sure you know how to do that. The best way to illustrate this, I think, for us, is to give you an example of the impact that it has. So we crafted the story of Chris. Chris is a Black man. This is a representation of Chris. He has a wife, 2 kids. His kids came to him through kinship. It can be considered a form of informal arrangement within Black communities where you're raising a child that was not born to you. So it's a kinship arrangement. His oldest daughter is struggling with emotional dysregulation and behavioral challenges. And so Chris may be part of the program or services. Like Chris might want to connect with your organization or where you work or whatever you want to do to support your family. And you want to help. But to really be able to help, you need to understand his reality and what he's going through. Because if you only offer support for behavioral issues for his daughter, then obviously really supported Chris. So let's try to dig a little deeper into the situation and apply what we showed you about multi-layered stigma. So what is specific about him? So first is like foremost and most visible identity is Black. So he is a Black man, but he's a parent also. He's a struggling parent, and he's in a kinship arrangement. So we don't know where the administrative side of things also is. We have a very little vision, but what we do know is that now, within the context of community, within the context of society, at a micro level, this force is coming into play. And so there's a stigma related to having a child who struggles with emotional regulation, which means that you can be blamed as a parent as not be good enough or not well equipped. You can be judged because your skills are not what they're supposed to do or can be to help. You're also being viewed you're just not doing the right things. Like it's parental failure. This is on you. So you're going to get the pressure of, how things look, like the expectation on your role as a parent. Then in addition to that, you have the community pressure that comes from your community, because in community, you have certain expectations as to how your kids is supposed to behave. There's also how you should react to things, how a man, for example, should react to things, how he needs to be like protector, be strong, being sometimes even the head of the family. There's another expectation that might come from your community. Then it has an impact on you, on your anxiety level, your stress, your maybe some depression, like whatever you're going through, because this is really hard. There's a taboo around mental health, whether it's for Chris or if it is for his daughter. So how supportive the community is going to be for them to access some support and help when it comes to mental health. There's also an additional question and force that might be at play. And there's the other one that we see more, but we often underestimate the impact of, is the stigma from broader society. is what the institution and how they see, what they expect from parents, Black parents, and what they do and what they see. So there's always the racial stereotypes about Black fathers, like they are not invested, they don't have the right skills, parenting skills, they are very detached, um, and so people are going to judge Chris through that lens of, is he really doing what he's supposed to do? Is he really adequate? Is he doing the right things? Is he the is he representing the stereotypical image that you have of a Black person, of a Black father, who is like all of those terrible things? And he's a man also, so he's supposed to be able to be in control, kind of like to be able to shift, especially when it comes to behavior. He should be able to do more and protect his family. And there's, when it comes to stigma, there's a lot of shoulds, like he should. Where does that come from? Who's in charge of saying that he should? This is one way to kind of spot the stigmas, and we need to ask ourselves, where does that come from? What should he be that way? What can he just be Chris? So how, like, another question we can ask ourselves then, now that we've gone through this, is how does that multi-layered stigma approach to things, how does it impact your sense of self? Because this is something that comes from the outside, right? We're talking about the macro level of community and culture. But it does have a huge impact, even if you're aware of those stigmas and you know that you're not responsible. It's a response from the outside of you. You will integrate some of it, and it's a threat to your belonging and your identity. Because experiencing stigma from within one's community and culture can feel like a threat to who you are and where you belong, and you feel kind of a disconnection. Because you're not connected, like you're not seen in society. There's forces that play against you in society, but then in your own culture where you are, there's the most potential for connection and therefore for safety. There could be a sense of not belonging, which is honestly an underestimated feeling, but that's one of the worst feelings in the world. Because in addition to that impact, you can feel isolated. You can not seek help because of everything, and you can still have poor mental health because, of course, you don't want to ask for help because the people who could help don't understand. And hopefully, because you're here today, you will understand, so you will be able to help. So when it comes to multi-layered stigma, we understand that this is about understanding their interpretation. How do we need to interpret the world? Like, it's kind of a Rosetta Stone of understanding what it means to navigate into the world. Like, whether the community, society, culture, those interactions matter, and you need to have that kind of code. Like, this is what it is for everybody. We all have to experience stigma in some form. We do talk more and focus more on historically underserved community within the READI Plus project, but because we work on access to services and programs. And when you are part of a historically underserved communities, first, there's a question of fairness. You need to have access to things that you have never asked access to. But we acknowledge also that people are experiencing things are maybe harder, more difficult, more trauma. And so it's even more detrimental that they get better access to services and programs. And one key aspect, of course, of community engagement is understanding the space that I'm entering, understanding what it means to have a good connection and to be reciprocal, for example. We're going to talk about all this with the rest of the workshop. But yeah, having a deep understanding of multi-layered stigma. It's an additional piece to understanding multi-layered identities, because now you have your map is clearer. You know how to navigate certain things. And now we're going to talk about what is the most important thing. So I'm going back to what I've said before, because it makes sense. So it makes sense also that I will reiterate, but don't reinvent the wheel. Wisdom is in community, knowledge is in community, expertise is in community. And for you to do community engagement well, it really focuses, you just need to focus on community collaboration and knowledge sharing. This is definitely what it is about. This is one of the thing that you need to spend the most energy on, is do I have, how do I develop the best way to collaborate with our other community? But also, how do I learn from them? How do I learn from them how to do things and just do them? So working in meaningful ways. One of the principles of Ready Plus that we always mention is cultural humility. You won't, or it would be the easiest way to gain and to access community wisdom is developing a practice of cultural humility. And cultural humility, it's really about, well, the basic way to describe it would be, I can learn something from anyone. But specifically, when I have a specific goal to connect with someone, they hold a knowledge and a perspective that I don't, and and I will gain something. There's a lot of value in that perspective, and I need to put myself in a position when I can receive that information. So it's when you lead with cultural humility, then that the connection that you create is very positive and will sustain like time and changes and modification change, whatever happened. You are building something stronger when you're rooted and grounded into a better understanding of other people through a positive lens, to something that's very positive. Expect the best from what you're going to learn. And with that, you're going to improve communication and safety, because you're going to be able to understand other better. You're going to be able to grow, but with integrity means it's a growth that feels right, basically, and that is balanced and healthy. You also will be able to recognize strengths and wisdom in others, which is also a key aspect. And you're going to reduce interpersonal conflict, also by improving on communication. But because you won't have those power dynamics, you will be aware and you'll be less likely to feed those conflicts, those power struggle, those power dynamics, because you're going to come from a place where is more, there's more humble. This is what it is about. That you don't assume what your place and your role is going to be. You are willing to let someone else take the lead. One of the reflection questions you can ask yourself to help you gain that cultural humility and to put yourself on the right path is, what is there that you still need to learn about the community? What can you learn by yourself, and what do you require the community's guidance to understand? So really, what do I know and what don't I know? And ask for help, which is way harder than people think, because asking for help is actually difficult. So you're going to use cultural humility, but a warning first, because I know that we're at a point where we teach a lot about a lot of different things. But cultural humility also is not some things. Like I said, it is just being humble about receiving information, but it is not the same as cultural admiration or celebration. Not that cultural admiration and celebration is not a good thing. It's a very good thing when you do it the right way at the right time. I think it's completely fair. But assuming that you can interchange that cultural humility and cultural admiration and celebration are interchangeable is wrong and not true, and actually harmful. Because if you are always admiring and celebrating a culture regardless of what's happening, then you're actually doing the opposite of what you want to do. There's a risk that you're going to reinforce stereotype and hardship. Why? Because you are feeding into, I feel like they are doing well but better, and you are in kind of repeating those structure where, they're different because of their specific identities, they're special because of their specific identities, but you are still keeping alive a system where those differences matter to the point where it's better or it's worse, etc. So there's a judgment there's a embedded pre-existing judgment within leading with admiration. And so it's also upholding white supremacy inequalities because, like I said, like it's because of that identity that they're doing different. So therefore, there's a reason why we should separate people. Also, not a good thing. And it can lead to polarizing opinions because exactly like they do it well, they do it better, they're great, they're great. So in return, like what does that mean for the other people on the other side? So you need to be very careful when you use cultural humility and not thinking like, oh, they do best, they're great, they're awesome. No, it's everybody has something that they can contribute that is positive and good, equal to yours. It's just you are deciding and choosing to listen and to integrate everything that you hear like equally. Then, because you use cultural humility, you are able to access community wisdom, which is basically the holy grail of what you want to accomplish. Um, it is said, and it has been proven many, many times again and again, that there's already amazing solution to very complex issues, sometimes societal complex issues that already exist within some communities that are just overlooked. It's like a treasure. Like it's having that treasure that's hidden in plain sight. And just because the society is structured to be very dismissive of some community or even to be judgmental or biases against some communities, then they're not seen as having valuable information, a valuable practice, of valuable codes that people should follow or could follow if they want to have certain outcome in their lives. For example, like discipline. Discipline is a very um, like difficult conversation because everybody has their own understanding of discipline. But definitely there's some ways that community parent that is not seen as good outside of those communities and sometimes leads to risk to interact with the child welfare system or the justice system when in fact there's a lot of misunderstanding as to why you're doing the things that you do because people don't have access to your community and they don't see the value of the way you do things. So when you put yourself in a position to be able to access cultural community wisdom, it's like, yeah, it's like hitting the jackpot, really. So collective knowledge and insight and understanding that exists within community based on shared experience and interest are the ultimate goal. You will learn a lot, for example, about approach to parenting, resilience and survival, because especially historically underserved communities have learned a lot through times and centuries about how to survive and how to thrive, but also how to be resilient and find the strength within that you didn't think you had. And you have a lot to learn from this. There's also well-being, for example, like how to live well, how to connect with the world that is around you, how to live a more sustainable life. Like all of this exists in community wisdom and is accessible as long as you are able to open the door on those communities' term, which is also, community engagement. This is a good illustration of what it is, what you can create when you are using cultural humility to access wisdom within communities and then bringing your own vision. Like I said, this is where it makes sense to not get confused with cultural admiration and celebration because you don't want to focus on one side. You want to focus on both sides to create something good in the middle. Basically, this is the perfect representation of this. You take the knowledge and skills and insight from community. And then you take your knowledge and your skills and your insight, and then you put it together and you create meaningful approaches and insights. And it's just not that you're combining and you creating something meaningful. No, you're really creating something new that wasn't there before, while using and respecting what you learned from the past. And you are also creating something that's innovative because it has not been done before. And if your goal is to be successful, then you are definitely placing everything the way you're setting yourself up for success, because you're using all the resources or the source of knowledge for you to be successful in what you want to do. So using cultural humility is very much that. It's very much about making sure you combine everything together to create something that's meaningful. So what does reciprocal knowledge sharing can look like? It So I'm going to explain where it comes from, but really, it can look like you involve the community partners in defining reciprocity. It's something that is very important in our project. We always thrive to build any connection, relationship, project, whatever we do, because we work in community a lot. We want to make sure there's reciprocity. So we are proactively creating the right circumstances, not necessarily circumstances, but we are purposefully trying to create the right condition, the perfect condition. So there's reciprocity. So even if we have something to offer that has nothing to do with why we want to collaborate, we are bringing something to the table that says, we have something, let's share. So there's always reciprocity. And we will see that there's a reason why it's there. It's also about sharing resources, extending opportunities, contribution, contributing to the community. So intentionally being not generous with money, but time, energy, mental space, like just being able to give without necessarily expecting something. And sharing opportunities also, it can be like there's a funding, here the funding, like there's many, many different ways to do that. Plan and design with community benefit in mind. You do want to make sure that you do things in a way that is going to have a positive effect, that is going to have a positive impact, and be able to foresee that, and again, create the right conditions for that. And honoring community's knowledge, expertise, and ways of being and doing. That we've been saying it a lot, but it's always nice to say it again so it sinks in. So taking our own lead and our own advice and our own way you do things, you will see that we reference a lot a report. That report is called Working in Good Ways Project. And so it's everything that we want to do, that we want that our project to be, and it represents exactly what we want to teach you today. It's working with communities to understand their needs and to share that vision with other people. So when it comes to community engagement, we highly recommend that you go see the report in its entirety. So you are better informed as to how you can work better with with a lot of different communities. So coming back to knowledge sharing, that what we said before, and why is it important to do it that way and to connect that way with organizations or people or whatever your goal is and what you work on? It's because engaging with communities requires something very specific, especially knowing about the lesson, like knowing the lesson you learned from the past. And why does it matter to do it the right way, the way we showed you? Is because in the past, the experience were not always positive. They're often very, very negative, actually. There was a lot of exploitation from marginalized communities. There's a lot of tokenism. Tokenism means that you just want diversity around because it looks good, but you have no intention to actually doing the work, making sure they're safe, understood, and seen. There's lack of accountability when there's harm that is done. It's not acknowledged and it's not fixed or healed. One-sided relationship is you want something from them, so you get in and you go and you take it, and that's it. Thank you, goodbye. Deficit in perspective is just really lacking any type of ways to connect by understanding their own experience, the community experience. It's just it can lead to constant questioning, gaslighting, just an unpleasant connection because you just don't get it. That's the part where people they just don't get it. Overlooking community wisdom, strengths, and knowledge and skills. I said it before. There has been solution to a lot of issues and challenges that we face as a society that could have been solved, can be solved, they will be solved, but by knowledge that already exists, by wisdom that was just disregarded. And hopefully with the project like READI Plus project and other projects, we understand better and better that we need to be listening more and learning more from all communities, but especially marginalized communities. Knowing that there's an impact of the past, We talked about multi-layer stigma as to what informed the experience of people. We should also consider how being part of a community, especially historically underserved communities, means that you were impacted by something that's bigger than yourself. At that micro level comes to it collective and historical trauma. That means that you should not just do community engagement, but you should integrate the fact that you understand the impact of the trauma those communities have experienced as a whole together. So trauma-informed community engagement is a very important aspect of interacting with all communities, especially underserved communities, because it's about creating a feeling of safety. So it's acknowledging that there's traumatic experiences that involve and impact the whole group, or group of people or communities, is acknowledging also that psychological and emotional impact of collective and historical trauma. It's recognizing the distress that people feel at the individual level when it comes to having those experiences, carrying those experiences within themselves. It can also have an impact on the fabric of community. And so interacting with those communities has a deeper meaning depending on your project, what you do, the way you do it, who you are. You need to be taking that into account when it comes to the work that you want to do. And understanding the impact of historical and collective trauma, not just the impact on people, but within what you are trying to accomplish, like how does it play into that situation? An example is I want to offer services for, I don't know, psychotherapy, for example. And I know that there's a stigma within communities about therapy. And maybe it's a very specific type of therapy that's called a specific way. And the word that I use, the framework that I use, or even the angle that I use is so far from that community and doesn't integrate everything that they went through that now I've created something that's completely inaccessible. I know that it happened a lot. I was a foster parent, for example, so interacting with CAS, the child welfare system, for some communities is very difficult. So if you are starting a program in the community, for example, and you work for Children's Aid, and you're like, oh, I'm going to offer a program with, I don't know, board games, then no, like it's not because your program is good that people are going to access this. You represent a system that hurt their community. And so you need to integrate that into the work that you want to do, acknowledge, integrate, and find a way to present it that it's safe and that takes into account that exactly what the impact is. There's also another side of trauma-informed community engagement, which is the rest of what you need to do when you interact with those communities, which is building safety and trust, and not assume that it's a given. You cannot just tell people they can trust you. You need to show them that they can trust you. You need to show up. You need to prove by first watching all the workshops that we're doing during that series, because they're going to all help you get exactly there. But also by being connected and intentional about it. There's also collaboration, choice, and connection, which is what do you show them? You need to embody the fact that I'm here to collaborate. I'm not taking the lead. I'm listening, giving options. Like, this is what I'm thinking. What are your thoughts? And connecting, finding opportunity to connect, not necessarily on the project, on the reason, on the goal that you want, but have multiple ways to connect to that community. Doing with instead of doing for or doing to. This is also that's core to the project that we do, and that was important for our funders, which is taking the lead of the community. And so you often hear now nothing about us without us, which is the perfect way to describe it. People who are impacted, or people who are part of the community that you want to serve, or the programs of people that are supposed to access whatever you work on, they need to be included, because if it's for them, it should be with them. Empowerment, which is self-explanatory, I think, and there's other consideration that needs to be given depending on what you work on and what you focus on. So now that we've talked about what it means to connect, like through different aspects, There's a trauma-informed aspect. There's acknowledging the past that is linked to that trauma-informed ways to connect. There's also the wisdom that we want to seek in and look for in communities that will be helpful with the way we want to work on the community level. And there's like, how do we help? Like, where do we start? Which is what I shared about cultural humility. But another thing that you can build into the way you work, kind of your compass, because I think it's vast. Like, we're entering a level where it's community wide, it's cultural wide. So it is vast and immense. And there's a lot of things that you will never be able to understand really. So you need guidance. You need to make sure you're on the right track. You need a compass. And one of the things that we want to share with you, it's having a value-driven aspect to your community engagement, which means like you can connect to people. It's way easier to connect to people when you know you are sharing, like you have kind of a shared values with those people. And it's interesting because we sometimes forget that we should protect our values. We should protect what's important to us. Like, there's a certain level of flexibility that you need for sure when you want to be more open to other people, when you want to learn more about people, when you are there just to make a difference and you're very excited. And I know that and we talk about this in another workshop. I invite you to go check them all out. But you are allowed to have a zone where it's you and there's no compromise on it. And sometimes value is like the biggest compass we can have. We can have, because it will keep you on the right track. It will show you the right direction. And one way or your values can show you if you are doing the right thing is, does this action brings us towards our values or away from our values related to community engagement? Because this is one way you will know, oh, I'm doing the right thing. Oh, no, I need to readjust. Like, if I know that I was told that I'm doing something that is re-traumatizing, and that's not something that I want to do, and I want to just, make sure they feel safe. Well, the situation showed me that I'm not aligning with my values. Definitely. So when values, basic values like reciprocity, dignity, that you need for good community engagement, like those values are reciprocity, dignity, relationship and connection, collaboration, empowerment, safety, and trust. When you are guided by those values and you adhere to those values, then the situation will show you if you are going the wrong direction. So community engagement often focuses on goals. And this is where we remind you that we know, don't just focus on goals. You need to also reflect on your values and kind of the journey that you're embarking on. Because if you only focus on the goal, then the journey, how do you know you're not going to get lost? That journey, you can have that compass that that your values, that's the role your values are going to play, and the values I need to share. And it's important to have that connection when you're trying to do community engagement. It's important that you are meeting each other on those terms, because everybody can be comfortable with those values. They are positive, and so it can be kind of thread that helps you like build this very healthy connection. Because there are that compass, and it's about you have a shared destination, but you need to find a way to have a shared interest in getting to that at the end of to get there, to get to the point where you want to go. It's about interrogating yourself, like trying to understand, like, is it taking me where I'm supposed to go, and readjust. Then if it does, great. If it doesn't, readjust. Make sure you're in the zone where you're flexible enough so you can readjust. And it'll be good. This one is so important. I think that's going to be my favorite slide of the entire workshop, just because it's one of it's the most integral piece of working with historically underserved communities. It is really putting a lot of effort and energy into creating a relationship, a healthy, stable, balanced, reciprocal, all of those good words that we shared during the workshop. This is what you want. Because again, it's you're setting up yourself for success. You are building something that will last longer. And that's going to just be more fruitful altogether. Because trust is an integral part of trauma informed and relationship, and they are the first, like, this is the first step of building trust, really. uh, it's also a step where you want to be in a position when you can have a healing effect on the relationship. We know that for a historically underserved community, the reason why they are underserved, it's because they are marginalized. And you need to take that into account. Even if that training is not specifically about historically underserved community, they are the ones that are the most difficult to access because of the trauma and the pain and everything that they went through. They are more closed off. So doing community engagement with some communities, you can apply everything that you learned today. But it's going to be way easier if you lead, like, if you, for example, you align your values, you learn from them, you take the lead, you know their values, you know you have common goals, then you get there. It's going to be a lot harder for communities that are historically underserved and went through a lot. So this is the most important part. And that is the analogy that we choose to share with you today, because it's a powerful analogy, and hopefully it stays in your mind and it kind of imprint, because I think it's a very beautiful tree. So we can view community engagement through a tree and roots analogy. The tree is our work with communities, and the roots are the relationship that we build with the communities. So roots must be present before the tree can grow. They need to be there. That's kind of the prerequisite for a situation for this entire thing to happen. You need the roots. And it illustrates how we must build relationship before we can work, even begin the work that we want to do. So it starts by being grounded and rooted into relationship building. Then the roots are the vessel that feeds the tree. This is where the tree can grow from. This is what sustains the tree. And so to sustain a connection, to sustain a healthy community engagement effort, you need to build those connections, those healthy connections. So you need to plan for that. And it's showing us how relationships are will drive the work, will be the source of how the work will grow and will be successful. And the roots are still present even when the tree is done growing. Yes, the tree can grow, but even when it stops, the roots are still there and are still feeding. And it's kind of the cycle, a virtuous cycle of relationship that you've built, that the work that you've done has value and is valuable. One of the reflection questions that you could ask is, am I listening? Because listening is very important. People want to be heard and seen, feel heard and seen. This is very important. And when you come from an underserved, historically underserved community, you've experienced repeatedly being ignored, being devalued, being dismissed. And so you want to even insist and do it even more. You want to listen and you want to validate. Does it feel like, and what does it look like when I'm listening to the community? And what are their reaction as well? Like, really integrate the interaction that I have with community and let them inform what I need to do when it comes to building a better relationship. So at the end of this, we're almost near there, not quite, but we'd like to remind you of our guiding principles, the one that we think are important to do the work and to be successful. Again, reciprocity is absolutely crucial and key and really core to the work that you need to do, because you don't want to reproduce the harm that has been done in the past. You want to highlight community wisdom, like I said, Like go treasure hunting. It's super fun. It needs to be relationship based. It needs absolutely to be grounded in a relationship, and maybe find different ways that just going right at your goal. Focus on connection. You do need to be trauma informed. It's very important when you want to work with historically underserved communities, because you need to understand the impact of trauma on the collective and the historical and what people carry on the inside. We have a separate workshop that talks specifically about this, about trauma, understanding trauma from an intersectional perspective. So go check that out, please. Like under the READI Plus project resources. And it needs to be collaborative. So you need to actually show signs, show proof, show in action that you are here to collaborate, to ask questions, give options, give choices, like lead that way. And dignity informed. Dignity informed is something that we add because it's really making sure that you see humans first, not just what you want from them, you see them. Communities have existing abilities and strengths. Never forget that. Communities hold expertise and wisdom, relationship, and other resources. Never forget that. All communities members have something to offer. Never forget that. In the report that we suggested, there's some actual tips that are shared to do that work better, to better engage with communities, that are kind of tips that we wanted to share with you. Because we are following our own leads and sharing the wisdom that is within communities and the good research that was done here. And we really invite you to just check the entire report. It's fantastic. So take time to foster relationship and build trust before proposing partnerships. Devote time within plan for relationship building. Understand how you can contribute, but allow the community to determine your role. Spend time with people and be present in community. Be adaptive. Maintain communication between projects. Lead with humility. Other concrete tips: building trust. It needs to be genuine, regular communication that is enjoyable, personal extents beyond work related and partnership topics. Foster personal and whole relationships. Maintaining the relationship after the work ends, and budget and timeline consideration, which is really, if you can give support in whatever way you can, be prepared to offer support in whatever way you can. So we've shared most of what you needed to know to do a good job with community engagement. You have a lot to think about, you have a lot to do, but we always want to leave you with a way to work on a specific skill that will be helpful for you to do the work. Because we say a lot of things that are theoretical, and we invite you to just even build trust. Like, how do you specifically build trust? There's a lot in READI Plus that we don't teach, because we know it's personal, it's individual. The way you will do things, what you need is completely different. And we do not believe in a one size fits all training. We don't think it's possible or even valuable to have that. Though it is important to know how to stay on the right track. And one little thing that we wanted to share is, we're using the principle of practical empathy that we used with READI Plus, which basically is, it's good to be able to put yourself in other people's shoes, but what do you do once you're in those shoes? What do you do with the information? And when it comes to community engagement, one of the barriers that I see and one of the challenges is really the inability to put yourself in someone else's shoes that is very different from you. And people forget that it's an actual superpower to be able to understand other people's perspective. People neglect the fact that, reinforcing your own personal perception just keeps you stuck in the way you see things, keeps you stuck in your ways, and then you're not able to grow, you're not able to connect. Like, this is, if you want to do any type of community engagement, you need to work on having better ways to access other people's perspective. And so to develop that superpower, I love this image because, it's a perfect representation of, no, there's five. No, there's seven. No, there's five. It depends on the way you see it. And if you're stuck in your own perception, how are you supposed to open your mind to other people enough so you can connect with entire communities or cultures? And you need to work on it. There's not really a trick to it. Like in one of the workshop, we say it's like plum Blake, like I think that's the right expression. But we say very clearly, trick your brain. It's about tricking your brain. It's about practicing things that are clear, so that it will help you actually create change within yourself. And one of the things that I like doing personally, and I hope you're going to do now from now on, is playing the perspective game. It's trying to find things. It doesn't necessarily have to be words, but I love to do it with words. But find something that is very different from you, like widely different, that you don't really understand. And then you practice at trying to put yourself in that person's shoes. And one fun way that I found is interesting is just trying finding things that exist in just in one culture. So I like the concept of there's some words that only exist in certain culture, for example. So it is uh, one vision of things. I know that there's one specific word that when I moved, I'm from France and I moved to Canada, I missed so much because it was like a key concept of my culture that doesn't exist here. And I miss it so much. And I didn't realize it was so important in my life, but it is. And so people were kind of missing something in my attitude that was related to this. And I felt like, it's what if you intentionally do that? Put yourself in a position where it's so different that it's kind of unsettling, but at the same time, it's fun. The concept that was missing was something that we call la flemme. And people will understand or think it's funny, but it's that feeling of I don't want to do something, but I should be doing it. But at the same time, I don't have the energy and I really don't want to do it. But I know I acknowledge that I should do it, but I don't want to. All of this is encompassed in one word, which is called la flemme, which everybody uses, everybody does in France. It's completely common. And it kind of struck me that when you want to connect with another community, if you don't understand that this is core to how they behave, you're going to misinterpret some of those behavior. I know that on that list, for example, E22 is kind of being always like very cool, chill, relaxed. And that's a goal that people want to achieve. Achieving it, like achieving an E22 state or an E22 behavior for the Yoruba is really like you're cool, you're really chill, like you're nothing really phases you, like it's really good. And so you can be put in a position when someone from that culture is, you have to work with them and something like a crisis erupts and they're like very detached and very calm. And you're like, oh my God, this is so stressful, like especially in North America, because we are very anxious. And you're going to misinterpret them for their behavior for being completely detached or not serious or not taking things seriously or being aloof or whatever it is, when in fact the way they react aligns perfectly with their culture and they are really striving for something that's seen as positive and that you misinterpreted. So this is where you need to work on your perspective, and finding ways to other culture do different things is super fun. So find a unique word, something else, or an expression, whatever. It doesn't have to be a list that doesn't exist in your own culture. Then try and see if you don't have that word, but really that way of thinking or that understanding exists, and give it like a rate from 1 to 10. And then how does it feel if it's under 5? Like this is like for E22, like they are too calm in crisis. Like this is not, it makes me so uncomfortable. And then work on that emotions and how it makes you feel. But it is closer to 5. How do you feel to have that connection to that community that you were unaware of? Like, oh, they have that word that means exactly this. And I am happy I have that word because now I have that one word, but also, there's this closeness that I didn't know was there. It's a fun way, I think, to work on your staying open to something different. And I invite you to do it. And this is what I wanted to share with you. This is the last thing that I wanted to share. Here are some references for you that we use for the presentation. I really hope you learn a lot about community engagement. This is something that is so important to do and so meaningful, but also that requires a very specific way to go at it. To make sure that the community you want to connect with are safe and respected and celebrated the way they deserve to. I was happy to be able to share this with you. I hope you learned a lot, and I hope you continue with us learning even more, because we have a lot more for you to access. So we have resources, we have workshops. If you find this on YouTube, you're going to have different information, but also just Google the READI Plus project and you will find us. Goodbye.